Hey, in this video we'll be making an invoice tracking automation using Make.com and Anthropic Claude models to process the PDFs. We'll use the AI to extract what's the total price of the invoice and then compare that to the tracking software or sheets that you're using. And depending on do they match, have processes that will continue. So let's get started. First, as I mentioned, we'll need to get the invoice and we'll be using email for that. We'll click on the email module and we are going to select the connection that we're going to use. And I have a test connection. If you're first configuring this, you can add a new connection here. We'll be checking the inbox and all emails. If you have a specific subject line they're sending, you can provide it here. If not, we can configure it like this. When you're building this and using it in production, you want to use it from now on, but since we're testing, we'll preload an email that we already have. And this is the email that we're going to use. So let's check it out. This is the invoice, and as you can see, it's a PDF document. It has multiple fields and it has the price in the table. So it's not just a simple structured table that's easy to process. It has a bunch of text and it mimics what really can happen when someone is sending it. So let's see if this works. It is processing, and yeah, we see that we got the email and we have the attachments here. Okay, we will now again select to load the message, and then we'll be configuring the AI agent. As I mentioned, we'll be using the Anthropic model because I found that it works better with PDFs, easier to configure than the OpenAI models. We'll need this Sonnet model if we want to work with PDFs. For max tokens, we can set 200 messages. Let's specify the assistant. You're an executive assistant. You help me process invoices. Something like that. It can be simple, no need to complicate it since it's a simple task. Next, we will supply the user input. So we are supplying the instruction. What is the total price of the invoice? And we are going to further instruct it to just provide the price. And we do need to provide a file. Then we're going to select here and PDF document. And you can see these are the two models that you can use to process files. So we need to supply the file name. We can go to attachments and then select file name, and we need to provide the exact data. So we can do it like this. Now let's run it and see if this is working. We got the email and we got the response, and we can see that we got the correct value from here. Now, we have a second part. So I mentioned that we'll be comparing to the expense tracking software or sheet that we have. So I made a simple sheet like this, and we have the compensation here. So maybe you are tracking your contractors by billed hours. So if they bill 10 hours for, I don't know, $135, then you can get this value. And then those can be extracted from some other software. So it doesn't have to be a Google Sheet, but it's the easiest to do with a Google Sheet. So we see that we have an email, and we'll use that email to find this record. we can go to Google Sheets and we can look for search rows. We select the connection, and there are two ways you can input the name, invoice tracking, or copy the ID. This is the ID. Both work, so no difference there. For the columns, we'll select A to Z. That only means like what columns are we going to load. Since we have only A to E, no need to load all the different ones. And we can immediately filter by email. And we find the sender email address here. And we can save it. It's still missing something. No, it should be good. Let's try save again. Okay, so we can test it like this. And we can see that we got that compensation, email, and everything. So as I mentioned, we will have two flows if the values match and if they don't match. So let's create first they match. And we want to check, does the compensation match to the value that we got from the text? When you're comparing strings, like meaning words or sentences, it's always a good idea to use this function trim. And what it does, it basically removes any space characters that may happen. So maybe someone left a space here, and then if you do an exact match, it won't be the same. So use the trim. And let me just check. Yeah, equal to, and then we have doesn't match, and we use the same. Well, we just say not equal to. And then you can have multiple, like maybe the invoice is missing here. Then you can automatically respond, hey, you didn't send us the invoice, or the record is not present in your software. Then you can notify the admin and so on. So you can easily add more of these paths to the system. Now, depending on what's your flow, you can just send an email, or you can send it automatically to your processing payment software. But let's keep it simple. We'll just return the email to the sender. Invoice approved or accepted. And we can do it like this. So you could send this email then automatically to your bookkeeper or whoever does the payment, and then tell them to pay this. Or if you have an automation for payments, you can send it there. For this one, you can send an email or an alert to yourself or any other manager to check if they don't match. Why do they don't match? Do you have something is missing in your tracking software, or they try to build you more or less? So both of these depend on your process, but this is the meat of it. So let's run the whole workflow. We'll again load the email that has the invoice and run it. We see we got the email, it's processed. Now we're getting the sheet, and we can see it's a match because these two are the same, because this is also 1250 USD. and we can see here that the email is sent. So what are some other improvements? As I mentioned, adding your exact process, adding cases if the invoice is not present in the email. You could then already check it here and send an email like you didn't send the invoice. And adding some handling, like if you want to add someone else in the communication. As I mentioned, I find that the Claude models work better with PDFs. With OpenAI, for some reason, when you send the file, sometimes it doesn't want to process it, especially if it's a link. Then to make sure it processes it, you need to create an assistant API and then upload that invoice to the vector DB and then pass it to the assistant API. So you would need 3 steps: upload the file, add it to DB, and then call the assistant API to ensure it's working. So it's easier just to use the Anthropic model. And I also find that they are better at following the directions. So I do like to use them more. As you can see, this system can be altered to work with any kinds of files, to extract the information, structure it, process it, save it somewhere else. So we can cover that in a different video. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll leave a link in the description where you can fill out the form if you have something you want to automate, or you can book a call and then we can discuss. Thank you. Bye.